Hello, hello, hello. My name is Sabrina Victoria. For those of you that do not know me, I am here today with Anneliese. We are going to be talking all about dads and business. This is going to be so much fun. For those of you who have not already subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. These podcasts are guaranteed to have you thinking differently about life and business. Let's jump right in.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
We already have people jumping on live. I love it. If you are listening here live, welcome. If you are in the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can send you some love in the comments. Listen, we've had over 600 women grace this stage. We are adding another one to the list today. We have Anneliese. She is mommy CEO of 2 Under 4, fractional CMO, marketing, a vendor, broker, human jungle gym, yes, and podcaster. She is a 4th generation female-owned entrepreneur. She helps dad-owned businesses go from feeling torn between providing time or money to triumph. Ooh, I love that. Yeah, because so often we think we have to do one or the other.
Yep. Well, that's what I think men are in society, that pressure is put on them. And now I think the pressure is put on women too. Not going to talk as much about that, but I do think parents just in general feel torn that they have to do one or the other. And it is possible to do both.
Yes, 100%. So first of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about why dads, why, choose, how did this journey come about for you?
Yeah, so I always say I was born into it. When I look back at my story, hindsight's 2020, and all the experiences that I went through, I think led me up to where I am now, as I think that's true for everyone. But specifically for our niche, because we do done for you Google ads, most service-based companies are owned by men that have families and are dads. So it started more from picking a niche and who was I already working with and how could I say it a little bit differently. But there is also that passion in me for dads, and I don't know if it was just put in me from birth, Sabrina, or if it was just, how I was raised. But my dad was, when I was first born, he was one of the top chemists in the world. I mean, he would go to China, to Sweden, to one of the top in the US, worked with a lot of big companies that I won't mention because I can't remember them all, but big, pharmaceutical companies, flavoring companies. And you could set your watch to when he left on Sunday night and when he got home on Thursday night. I always joke he was probably best friends with, the guy that drops you off to get your car and the ticketing person. And I mean, this was almost 40 years ago because I'll be 39 on March 12th, but it was a while ago, but things were not the same as they are with TSA now. But long story short, when I was 11, he was offered a pay cut to either move his family, which included at the time my 90-year-old Nana, to Austin, Texas. A year later, we would have moved to Orlando. And a year later, we would have been in the middle of Disney World with no job because the company imploded after they moved. Or he could, take severance. And my mom, being the entrepreneur that she is, she said, there's a third option. And my dad said, there is. She goes, yeah, I run companies and you're really good at playing the support role. Just do that for our company versus them. And they did for 3 years. And Sabrina, they are the happiest memories I have from 18 and under. They were when we were a family. When dad traveled, we got to go with. I got my start in advertising because back then the internet didn't launch yet. because it didn't launch till I was 14. And my dad would sign the letter, my mom would fold it, my sister would put it in the envelope, and I got stuck at the end licking the envelope. And I still hate the taste of envelopes. So yeah, it made such a difference. And until I experienced the drastic difference of him home versus not home, I don't know that passion would have been put inside of me. So I always say that I get you because we are you, because I was your daughter growing up, and now I'm, the wife or mom of my husband's kids, not everyone's, but let's clarify that point. But we've experienced the difference of him not having to be out of the house as much and very close to being able to work full time in our business. And it's just tangible. And I'm the kind of person, when I experience something, I want everyone to be able to experience it too. So just to be able to help dads be able to do that. But I always say, you have to talk to one niche, right? Like, I mean, yours is women, mine is dads. But I'm also advocating as much for the wife and the kids as I am for the dads, because they're the ones that also benefit. So that the best answer I've come up with to that question. I get asked it on almost everything that I'm on. And I think it was just, part of my calling and my mission for being here on earth is to advocate for that. So,
yeah. When you talk about, presence versus money, what is your thought? What is your opinion on, which is greater, which is more necessary? How is a family supposed to gauge this?
I think every family is different, is what I will put out there first of all. I think though, if you ask my almost 4-year-old daughter, because I don't know that my 2-year-old son could quantify it, she would take daddy sitting on the couch with her over $100 in her hand. Um, there's no amount of money for the time that she gets with her dad. And I think it's more society, it's more, that struggle for what does success look like that we put on ourselves more than what our kids want. And I think, like I said, for every family, it's different. I'm a big believer in knowing your kids' personalities, well, anyone's personalities and anyone's love language, but especially your kids. And my daughter's quality time, my son's physical touch, he'll take a fist bump or a hug and move on. So, presence looks different for that as well. But I would also say I think it takes both, right? You need the money coming in to provide for your family as well. But I always say that money is not the only provision out there. There's so many other ways to define provision than financial. I think it's a piece of it, but I don't think it's the only piece, because, I have a friend who both of her parents are doctors. She didn't want for anything financially, but she would have given any amount of money for their time. And so I think it's where people place their value. And like I said, for every family, it's different, but you have to figure out what that is for your family. And, for us, we will live in a smaller house, but have both of us home. But some people might want that bigger house. Some people, maybe their kids are in a traveling team. Well, that takes money, to support that. So my daughter has started dance, and she's danced since she was 6 months. We just got her into lessons. That's an investment, not just the lessons, but, buying the t-shirts to support her and the costume and the shoes and the tights. And, she's just 4. So that's going to be part of presence for her that will require a financial commitment, but it's prioritizing what's the most important for your family.
Absolutely. So as far as running a business and how to actually condense a person's time. so that they're still making the same, if not more money, and then be able to carve out that time. What are the top three things that you would recommend a father to start looking into, to start implementing in order to shave off some of that time?
Yeah, great question. And I only get to pick three, huh? I'll have to think about that. So, one, I always ask my clients, what's your goal and what's your budget? So, I always use the analogy of a GPS. When you, a lot of people or when they think about a GPS, they think about putting in the destination. But the first thing a GPS asks you is, where are you at? So, one is knowing where you're at compared to where you want to go. You can't draw out a map or a blueprint, or, whether you want to use the analogy of building a foundation for a house, if you don't know where you're at and where you're trying to go, what you're trying to accomplish. The other is budget. And, I pick a word every year. I don't know if everybody does that, but it's been helpful for me to have a focus. And in both 2022 and 2023, my word was capacity. And I like that word better than budget, because with budget, a lot of people think financial, but there's also, what's your emotional capacity? What's your spiritual capacity? Whatever that is for you. What's your physical capacity? And, over the last 4 years, I joke I've either been pregnant or nursing. So, or chasing a little human being. And so, physical capacity was different along those times. But for a father, the same thing. My husband, he's more of an introvert. He has a different capacity energy wise than I do as an extrovert. I am energized getting around people. If he had my schedule, he would want to take a nap all day. So, a dad needs to ask themselves, what is your mental capacity? What is your spiritual capacity, your physical capacity, and and financial capacity. So financial is one way to unload a lot off of your plate by outsourcing things that aren't in your zone of genius or your zone of strength. One of my goals is to have someone handle all of my accounting, because if I look at one more checkbook, sometimes I just want to throw it across the room. So that's something, because it's not my zone of genius, it's going to take me longer and it's going to drain from those capacity buckets. But there's some things that I love to do and they energize me. So a dad needs to ask himself those same things. I can only speak from our clients' perspective, but most of them, maybe they inherited a business from their dad, it was passed down, or maybe they, were working for someone else. They saw how much money was being made and they said, hey, I can do this for my family and I can keep more of the money for my family. But they knew the skill, but they didn't know all the other things that went along in business. And so a lot of the things that keep them away from their family and keep them, when the doors are closed and their car's the only one in the parking lot, like one client I'm particularly thinking of, it's because they're doing all those things that maybe aren't in their zone of genius or zone of strength, like graphic design. You can hire someone to do that. A marketing manager like myself, you can hire someone to do that, an accountant, unload those things. And generally, you're going to make, as the business owner, this isn't always 100% true, but you're going to make more per hour sticking with what you're good at, paying someone else to do what you're not good at, keeping the difference. And then once you're done with what needs to be done under your load, go spend time with your kids, go spend time with your family, and know that those things are handled. The biggest thing I think people run into, which is the third thing I'd add, is you have to learn to trust. Otherwise, it's always going to be done for you and it's always going to be on you, and you're only going to expand your business, whether it's your time or not, but it's only going to get to a certain level. Now, sometimes in the beginning, like we're in our 4th year, there were some things that we had to do ourselves just because there wasn't the capacity financially there, but we had the time capacity. to unload those. But now we're talking about hiring a VA. We're talking about hiring some people to handle certain things so it's not all on us. On the marketing vendor broker side, I like to, provide myself and my clients with, hey, these are people who I've come across with in the last 17 years as a professional in this industry that are the best that I've found, and you can trust them. And a lot of times, because they can trust me, they can trust those people by association. So, where are you at? Where are you trying to go? What's your zone of genius? And what can you unload and trust? Those would be the three things that I would say.
Beautiful, definitely. And I really like how it kind of goes together with, you know, learning to trust people plus not knowing that you need to stay within your zone of genius and offload some of your stuff.
Yeah.
I know that was one of, and still is, something that is difficult for me. When you talk about unloading or staying within your zone of genius, sometimes when you're looking at your business, especially if it's just kind of like you or like you and your spouse, it could look like none of this can be unloaded. Like only I can do all of this. Nobody else can do this the way that I want it to be done, as meticulous as I want it to be done, with the friendliness, with the heart, with the love, whatever it is, all the excuses.
Yeah.
How does somebody sit? What is the journey that a person needs to go to in order to really zone in on what they're supposed to be doing versus what they can outsource? Like, what does that actual, like, do these people need to sit down and journal and meditate? Is this like they need to call a coach? Is this a plan? Like they need a freaking diagram? What does this look like?
I think it depends on the person. I think some people are wired to trust faster than others. Um, that's me. I'm actually wired to trust faster. I still like to have control of certain things. I don't know a female that does not. My husband struggles with trust because he is wired to not look for the problems, but he identifies potential roadblocks that could come up so that they can be avoided. And so his personality, it's a hurdle for him to trust that people can do things. But I think it comes back again, and I talk about this all the time, is, what's your goal? Sometimes you can't have your cake and eat it too. Sometimes you have to pick, do I want to be with my kids and my wife and my family, or do I want to do this as meticulously and perfect? When I'm getting ready to hire a VA to handle certain things, there's going to be a learning curve there. There's going to be some things that they're not going to do the way that I would want to. And so I think another factor is patience, of knowing that it's going to be a process. And I think that's just part of an entrepreneurial journey too, right? I mean, I have never talked to anyone where it has gone as fast or faster than they wanted it to go, right? And so I think having a realistic expectation. My business coach, Rob Sainer, talks. Have you read the book, The Gap and the Gain?
No, I've totally heard of it. A lot of people talk about that book.
Yeah. So it talks about the gap between what your goal was and where you are now. And, we had a goal last year financially, didn't hit it by a mile, but we accomplished so many other things. And it talks about focusing on the positive and where you did get to, what were the positives that did happen, not the difference between where you are and where you want to go. Because this year will blow past what we wanted to do last year and more. And so you just have to realize that there's steps along the way. I personally am a big believer in coaching. I have been coached since I was 3. I danced since age 3, had a basketball coach at 7. I have a business coach now. We have mentors that coach us in every area of our lives. I'm a big believer in it. I think that we have a mentor that says that if you're only listening to your own thoughts, that you're inbreeding on your own thoughts, and nobody likes inbreeding. So other people have a wider perspective, and they're sometimes just higher up on the mountain, and they're like, hey, I know it looks like it sucks now, but man, if you could see it from my perspective, you'd have a totally different view on what's happening here, a totally different paradigm. So I think that people need to supplement which is such a big word these days, right? I mean, we supplement nutritionally and all these different things. Sometimes we need to supplement our weaknesses and just be okay that we don't have to have it all figured out. One of my favorite quotes is, if we both agree, one of us isn't necessary. My business coach and I, we're both super high D's on the disc, but he's a C, I'm an I, and it's a really good combination. I think you should surround yourself with people that think differently than you, that, don't always agree. And I learn more from people that aren't like me than that are. And it makes me a better, more well-rounded person. So, I don't know that there's a cookie cutter answer to your question, but I really feel like that goal and that vision of what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, my husband always does. I copyright what he talks about in my posts on LinkedIn on Friday, and he made a comment at the end that he didn't apologize for the abundance of time that we could spend with our kids, because it's been 17 years in the making. And it's actually probably 19, because we talked about the life we live now when we were 21 and 23. We talked about me being home. We talked about both of us being home. We talked about homeschooling our kids before we were even married or kids were even anywhere close to being in the picture. Wow. And so my husband hates journaling. I love it. Again, so I think it comes down to what works for you. But yeah, I think you need a picture of where you're trying to go, whether you want to use the word blueprint, vision, destination in the GPS, whatever analogy. We're searching for a house right now, and we have a very clear picture in our head of what it is. And so many people forget to develop that picture before they go after it. And then they're spinning their wheels in the mud going nowhere because they don't know where they're trying to go. So that quote or phrase, slow down to speed up. Sabrina, you and I have a very similar personality, and I don't like to slow down ever. But man, if it helps you get there faster than you would have, it's actually faster to do that work before you go after it. Because I don't like anything to take longer than it has to. I don't know many people that do, but especially super direct people I don't think do, type A people. So that's one of the biggest lessons I think that I've learned, is the slowing down to speed up.
Yeah. This reminds me of a kind of a story around that, sort of a story around that. But when I was first looking into getting a CRM, did not want to take the time or the energy to research one.
Yeah.
And also did not want to take the time or energy to input the huge freaking binder of names that I had collected, just over the procrastination of getting a CRM, basically. And, finally, after a way longer than I should have, buckling down, and the process and the slowness of entering everything in by hand, because it was on paper.
Tedious. Mm-hmm.
But to your point, that slowdown of just like creating the foundation or the structure to speed up is like, I don't even know how I was even functioning. Like, I don't even know how I was doing business.
Right. And you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to lean on what other people know. and trust that they're not leading you astray, and just know that it's going to be all right. And everybody struggles with that. We have a former client of mine who was with me from 2009 to 2020 when I was in corporate. He's finally coming over to the Never Miss a Moment family. And I've known him for years, and he's still like, okay, what are we doing again? Why are we doing it? Like, it'll be all right. I've never led you astray. Let's just go on some faith, and you have to watch it play out sometimes. And I know that's my biggest struggle is I know it's going to be okay, but I kind of just want to get to the point where it's okay. I don't want to go through the process of it playing out, but that's part of life. And that's where we learn, is sitting in that waiting sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about lead generation and and sales. For some individuals, not for everybody, but for some individuals, hiring out for that is weird and incredibly time consuming to teach and train. And then two, are there other ways? Are there anything that you or your clients do as far as generating leads and getting more for less, less time? What are some thoughts on that?
Yeah. So again, I'm going to ask them the goals and budget questions. And I was actually just talking about this yesterday on Junaid Iqbal's in his audio room. Sometimes your currency is time. Sometimes your currency is money. Yep. So for those whose currency is time, LinkedIn is great. Facebook is great. Word of mouth is great. Referrals is great. Whether you go to BNI and I'm not particularly like a fan of one networking group over the other, SEN, I mean, they're all good, right? Your networking that you do on Tuesdays, you're investing your time that you could be making money somewhere else with the faith that putting that time in is going to lead to a return. Mm-hmm. Other people don't have the time. They're not going to sit in networking groups. They want it to come soon. They're not going to have the patience to, build up the brand and the know, like, trust process on a platform like LinkedIn or Facebook, like you have with Her Nation. So for them, investing their money, whether it is, and this comes down to where is your demographic at, right? So, that's going to depend on whether you're going to Google, if you're trying to attract people that are, couples and homeowners that are having problems with their homes. And that's where that's where we help a lot of our clients, because that's where their potential clients are. But we also help them with social media, and that could be anywhere from, believe it or not, it could be TikTok. That's generally not our clientele's, target, but that could be someone's, to Instagram, to Facebook, to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is, as a rule, going to be more B2B. But yeah, so you can do ads or, and you don't have to start with a ginormous budget. One of the things that I coach my clients on is, let's start with where you're comfortable. We have a client that does a Google ad budget for $300 a month. Now, he's very niche and it's not a competitive market, so that works for him. But we have clients that spend tens of thousands a month because it's super competitive and they're going after a bigger area and a broader, set of keywords and all that kind of stuff. But the gentleman who we're helping with the $300 a month from the profits, then the goal is, okay, we have these profits. It came from Google Ads. Obviously, you're going to need some for your infrastructure, but can we reinvest and increase your budget a little bit? The gentleman that we're getting ready to help again, back in 2009, he had $900 a month. Now, for a plumber, it's not a lot, but that's what he had. And over years, we grew it to $10,000 a month. But every dollar that he reinvested, he knew came from profits because we did call tracking. He could listen to the call and know that it exactly came from that platform. And we haven't gone here yet, but a big thing with advertising or investing your time is checking it against the metrics and the data into what it's producing. And if it's not, one of your favorite words is to be ready to pivot and drop it if it's not working, or pause it and come back to it. But you can't just put something in there and have it set it and forget it in autopilot. And don't just trust someone like me that hand me your money and it's going to be fine. No, like I always say, check the data, not the person, because the data never lies. The data, there's always a story there. And a person can spin something, but data's data. When I do my ROI audits for clients, I'm like, hey, I don't have a dog in this fight. I am just telling you what the data is saying. It's telling you a story, and I'm going to put a cover in a binder and put it in a book and make it pretty. But the data is the data. But yeah, you're not at a loss if you don't have the money up front. But you've just got to know, like I said, where you're starting, where you want to go. That might be my answer to every question you ask.
I love that. So the $300 a month, that's like $10 a day, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
Those,
yep. It is, or with Google, you can pick the days that you want to be live. We have a client, Monday is his biggest day. We actually take half of his monthly budget and put it into Monday. We put some of it into Tuesday or Wednesday, Thursday from 6 to 10 at night. So he's only live at night. And then we put a chunk of it on Friday because that's a bigger day, but he's not live on Saturday, Sunday. So you can control things by it's called ad scheduling, at least with Google. And I'm pretty sure Facebook and Instagram is similar. When you're live, the hours, the days, and who you're targeting. So sometimes if we do have him live Tuesday through Thursday, it's just for his name, because there is a company that is 2 hours away with an almost identical name that was stealing a lot of his business because they were advertising under his name, and they would come down to Cincinnati from Columbus. So sometimes we run ads. We pause all the other ad groups, but we only have his name live when we have the budget to do that. So it's all very custom. I say it's like a tailored suit. It's going to fit every business different. There's no advertising campaign should be cookie cutter. That's one of the biggest things I said when I started my company, when I left an agency. I hated that I had to sell a cookie cutter program, because no business is the same. Even if they're in the same industry in the same city, they're not the same.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, definitely so much great information here. As far as, I had another question that was right on the tip of my tongue and I should have wrote it down. This is why I take notes.
No pressure.
It'll come to me. For those that are listening live, we have a ton of people here listening live. Thank you so much for being here. For those listening on the replay, make sure you drop in the comments, say hello in the replay so we can find you a little bit later. Would love for you, Anneliese, to talk a little bit about, what exactly you do, who exactly do you help, who should be reaching out to you?
Yeah. So our target that we help are dad-owned businesses. Generally, they are B2C. They are service-based companies. So your typical ones you would think, plumbers, HVAC. But like I said, we help a speaking coach. We help a headshot photographer. We help a black car service. We help a jeweler. So B2C is not, just the ones with trucks on the road. But I love to help, dad owned, because there's a family behind it that's going to get the benefit of them being helped. The main thing I'm going to talk about on LinkedIn is the done for you Google ads. My husband runs that division. I'm his wife, so of course I'm going to say this, but he's literally a genius with it because I've seen it over 17 years done right and not. And I'm also very honest. So if he wasn't good at it, I would say that, but he's literally just has a knack for it and just sees things and approaches things that people, a very non-conformist, non-traditional way of approaching it. But I am a marketing manager. Some people would say fractional CMO, but generally with a CMO, they're only doing the strategy. I do the implementation. So when I say that I take it off their shoulders so that if their kids are small enough, they can be up there instead, I'm literally taking it all off of their shoulders. I'm running point. They give me a budget. I'm making decisions. I'm, of course, checking with them. But some of my customers' goals is to never talk to me because they're so busy doing what their zone of genius is because I'm booking them to do it that, we don't have a lot to talk about except strategy. And then I'm also a marketing vendor broker. So I've said I'm the eHarmony of marketing vendors. So I match up personalities, price points, just what people need. I have a gut feel about, who would be good fits and match those up as well. And then those are generally a lot of family-owned businesses as well. So we're not only helping our clients' family-owned businesses, our own family-owned business, but helping other parentpreneurs that are at home trying to make it work too. So
beautiful. I love it. And then for those that are looking for some more info, where can they find you online? Where do you hang out on social media?
Yeah, so you can see my my website right under my name there, nevermissamomentconsulting.com. If you go to the Let's Chat page, I answer every message that comes in personally. It's something I will probably never outsource because I like to personally answer those. And I'm hanging out on LinkedIn most of the time. I am also on Facebook, and Sabrina's Her Nation has brought me more to Facebook than I've ever been. So working on that. But yeah, just being a mom of two, 4 and under, I know one of my limited capacities is time. And so LinkedIn is the most productive place for me to do there. And I also did just launch my newsletter, Dad Talk, on Thursday. So you can find that on LinkedIn. And we are working on getting that off the platform into an email version as well.
Awesome. You said it's a newsletter?
It's a newsletter. Yeah, it's Dad Talk. So I interview a dad pro on a topic. So my business coach, Rob Sainer, and I just did one on work-life balance. So we're talking about topics that honestly matter, I think, to any parent, but try and hone in on things that would be valuable for dads. And they're just little quick hit tips because people don't have time for a super long verbose newsletter, especially dads. So
100%. Very cool. Well, this was absolutely phenomenal. I so appreciate you coming in, sharing some of this awesome knowledge. I know that, so many of us who are running businesses, it's really hard to decipher, what next, how to do all the things, how to get your time back, and, what we're supposed to actually be outsourcing, in order to make sure that we are spending time with our family, our loved ones, and all the things that matter. So Thank you so much, Anneliese, for sharing with us, for hanging out with us. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up?
Ooh, closing thoughts. The thing that's coming to my mind, and it was just sparked as you were talking, is you're not alone in what you're thinking or what your struggle is, whether you are a mompreneur, a dadpreneur, whether if you're listening to this and you're not even an entrepreneur. I think the worst thing when you're going through a struggle is to feel isolated, and just know that there's someone out there that has been through it, is going through it, and just, it kind of, I guess, falls into outsourcing by like asking for advice, but just reach out. Don't sit in it by yourself. Don't assume that you would be shocked how many people have gone or are going through the exact same thing that you're going through. And that, I think, keeps us from burnout and just being overwhelmed and all the things that are going to keep you from what you want. And I mean, a plug for Her Nation. Like, one of my favorite things is I'm now starting to get just emails where people are asking, like, "Hey, I'm going through this. Like, I don't really know about this. Do you know someone who does?" Like, that's just a perfect example. And you've created a wonderful community that demonstrates that. So I can't think of a better example. So I'll plug that one.
I love it. We love that you are with us and that you are, helping all the dads out there, of all the wives that are running businesses. So thank you so much for being here. For those of you listening live and really resonating with Anneliese and all the goodness that she shared today, make sure you find her. Predominantly, she hangs out on LinkedIn. Her website, nevermissamomentconsulting.com. It is here on the screen if you're watching us live. But it is in the description below and a clickable link wherever you are listening to us. Thank you, Anneliese, for being here, sharing your wisdom, inspiring us all. To our dedicated listeners, thank you for staying with us until the very end. Remember to follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I invite you to join our amazing community, Her Nation, where we continue to uplift each other every step of the way.